Hello everyone, this is Vinita and welcome to Hopeful Turns. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you the tutorial for this crochet headband. Now you can use this headband as a ear warmer also, and it's a completely customizable pattern. So you can adapt this pattern to make it into any size. You can even adapt the width. So if you're looking for a ear warmer which is much more wider or narrower, you can completely adapt the pattern. And the whole headband here has been made with the zigzag puff stitch, so that creates this beautiful braided effect. So let's see the supplies that you'd require. Now for this here, you can use any weight yarn, but if you're making it as a ear warmer, I would say weight 3, 4 or 5 would be a good choice. Now here I have used the Stylecraft Special DK weight yarn, and with this I have used a 4.5 mm crochet hook. Now this is a 100% acrylic yarn. If you're looking for a very warm ear warmer, I would say you can even use a wool, so it will give you nice warmth. Now as I said, I have used a 4.5 mm for the headband, but just for the initial foundation chain stitch, I have used a size H of 5 mm crochet hook. Apart from that, you would require a pair of scissors and a yarn needle to weave in the ends. So these are the supplies that you'd require. Now if you're ready, we can get started with the tutorial. But before that, a small request. If at any point in the video you like what you see, please do not forget to press on the like button. And if you're new to my channel, please do consider subscribing. Now let's just get started. So we'll start this pattern by making a slip knot first. So make your slip knot and then we will make our chain stitch. Now for the chain stitch here, the initial foundation chain stitch, I'm going to use a size H of 5 mm crochet hook. I'm going to use the larger size. It's just to make sure that the starting or initial chain stitch that I have is of the same width as my rest of the project, because if you have noticed, sometimes your starting chain stitch somehow just gets pulled, it arches, it just doesn't match the width of the entire project. So in order to avoid that, I'm using a larger hook size. Okay, and I'm going to start with 11 chain stitch. Chain 11, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. Okay, so here I have got my 11 chain stitch, and this will be the width of your headband. Now if you want much wider headband, you can just go on increasing the number of chain stitch. You just make sure that it is an odd number. I'm starting with 11. I'll just change my hook size. I'm dropping down to 4.5. okay, so once you have your foundation chain stitch, what we'll do is we will skip the first 3 chain stitch. 1 2 3. I'm going to skip 3 chain stitch. Now the first 2 chain stitch we are going to count as a half double crochet. After that, I'm going to skip the 3rd chain stitch as well, and into the 4th I'm going to work a double crochet. So work a double crochet into the 4th chain stitch from the hook. So here I have made my double crochet. Okay, next I'm going to put a puff stitch. Now the puff stitch will go just right beside the double crochet. So we are going to go towards our right side to make a puff stitch. So we had skipped 3 stitches. So just before that, this is where we have put our double crochet. We will work a puff stitch, the stitch before it. So here I'm going to make a puff stitch. Now for a puff stitch, you have to yarn over first, go into the previous stitch, the one we had skipped earlier, insert your hook there and pull up a loop. Now when you're pulling up, pull it a little bit higher. Okay, so this is the first pull that I have done. I'm going to do that again. So yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop. This is the second time. Again, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. This is the 3rd time I have pulled up. Again, one more time, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. So this is 4 times. So I have pulled my hook 4 times. And if I have to count it, I'll have 1 2 So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. I have 9 loops on my hook here. I'll just yarn over and pull my yarn through all the 9 loops like this, and then make one chain stitch, chain 1. Okay, so here we have got a puff stitch, and we'll be making this throughout this row. So once this is done, so here we had the double crochet, that is where this is going. Skip one stitch and into the next stitch make a double crochet. So I'm going to skip here and make a double crochet here, and where we are skipping we will make the puff stitch. So we'll make the puff stitch once we do a double crochet. So skip one stitch and into the next one make a double crochet first. Here I have made a double crochet, and where we had skipped our stitch earlier, I'm going to put a puff stitch. So here, this is the stitch we had skipped earlier, make a puff stitch here. So to make a puff stitch, you yarn over first, insert your hook into the stitch which was skipped earlier. Just insert your hook and pull up a loop. So this is the first pull. I'm going to do it 3 more times. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. This is the second time. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. Third time, I'll do once more. Yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. Okay, so here I have pulled up 4 times. I'm going to yarn over and take my yarn through all the loops and then chain 1. So this here is my second puff stitch. Like that, I'll just repeat it. So skip one stitch, into the next stitch make a double crochet. So I'm going to skip one stitch and then make a double crochet. Alright, so here I've got my double crochet. Come back here to the stitch which you had left and make a puff stitch. So to make a puff stitch, you yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch that you had skipped and pull up a loop. So this is the first pull. I'm going to pull 4 times. So this is 1. Again, insert your hook, pull up a loop. Second time, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. This is the third time. Again, yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop 4 times. So here I have pulled it 4 times. I'll yarn over and pull the yarn through all the loops and then chain 1. So here I've got my third puff stitch. I have 3 stitches left, so I have 1 more puff stitch to go. So skip one stitch, into the next one I'll make a double crochet first. So first you'll make a double crochet and then go back and make a puff stitch. So double crochet is made. Now go back to the stitch which you had skipped. So this is a double crochet, this is the skipped stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch that you had skipped, pull up a loop once, again yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop 2 times. This is the third time and 1 more, 4th time. So 4 times I have pulled it up, yarn over through all the loops and chain 1. So the last puff stitch is done. Now if you see here, we have just 1 last stitch left. So into the very last stitch we will make a half double crochet. So for a half double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook into the very last stitch, pull up a loop, and for a half double crochet you have to yarn over and pull through all the 3 loops. Okay, now if you see here, this is what the first row is. So we had skipped 2 chain stitch at the very beginning, so that was equivalent to a half double crochet, and that is why we are ending also with a half double crochet. Okay, and in the middle we have put double crochet and puff stitch. Now we'll start row 2, and from here it is always going to be the same. You start with 2 chain stitch, 1, 2. So you always start with 2 chain stitch, which will be treated as a half double crochet. So you'll always end also with a half double crochet. That will come to it. So once you make 2 chain stitch, just turn your work. So here we have our chain 2. Now we're going to do the exact same thing that we had done in the first row. So what we'll do is we'll first make a double crochet and then make a puff stitch. And the double crochets will go on top of your puff stitch. So if you see here, this here is your puff stitch, and you can find the chain 1 that we had locked up, this place. There we are going to make the puff stitch. So double crochet. So on top of your puff stitch we'll make a double crochet. So go ahead and make a double crochet on top of the puff stitch first. Okay, so we have chain 2 and this here is our first double crochet. Now we'll make the puff stitch, and the puff stitch we will make here in this space. So we are going to go back and make a puff stitch. So yarn over, find that space in between and make a puff stitch. So I'm going to pull 4 times. 1, 2, 3 and one more, 4. So I have pulled up 4 times. I'll take the yarn and pass it through all the loops that are there and chain 1. So the puff stitch is done. So we're just going to repeat it. We'll first make a double crochet and then make a puff stitch. So, and the puff stitches will be made in these spaces. So between 2 puff stitch you have a space here. There we will be making a puff stitch, and the double crochets will be made on top of your previous row's puff stitch. Okay, so first we'll make a double crochet and that is made on top of your puff stitch. So all of the puff stitch are going to be connected to one stitch. There we will make a double crochet and then go back and into the space make a puff stitch. So between the puff stitch you can find a space. There we will work our puff stitches. Okay, so here my puff stitch is done. I'm going to pull my yarn through all the loops and chain 1. So this puff stitch is done. Next we'll make a double crochet and we'll make it on top of this puff stitch here. So I'll make a double crochet first and then go back between these 2 puff stitches, the space here, and complete a puff stitch. Now here I'm just pulling it 4 times, but if you want a much more puffier stitch, you can pull 5 or even 6 times also. So that's up to you, the way you want your puff stitch to look. If you want, as I said, much more puffier one, pull it 5 or 6 times. So this is done. Again I'll make a double crochet. So on top of the last puff stitch I'm making a double crochet and the last puff stitch. 2, 3 and 4 times. I'll pull through everything and chain 1. Now for this row you don't have to put another puff stitch here. In case you have any confusion, you can just check with the first one. So each row should have the exact same number of puff stitch. So for the first row 1, 2, 3, 4 we have 4 puff stitch. Second row also we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the end of this one because we have started from this side. It will just finish here. So 4 puff stitches done for row 2 also. Now to end row 2 we are going to end with a half double crochet. So find your turning chain. So this actually was your puff stitch. So I'm going to find my turning chain here and make a half double crochet like this. So we have started with 2 chain stitch, which was a half double crochet. We are ending with a half double crochet. So that finishes row 2. We'll start row 3. So I'll just start row 3 again with you. So every row we'll start with 2 chain stitch, chain 2. This will be treated as a half double crochet. Turn your work. Now again we are going to do double crochet and then a puff stitch. So this is our first puff stitch here. On top of it make a double crochet first, then you have to make a puff stitch here on top of this one. So this will be aligned to this puff stitch here. So come to this space and make a puff stitch. 2, 3 and 4. Pull through everything and chain 1. This is done. Now make a double crochet. So this is my second puff stitch. Here on top of it I'll make a double crochet, and between these 2, this is a big space here, there I'll make my next puff stitch. 3 and 4 times. Pull through everything and chain 1. So like this I'll just complete it. 1, 2 puff stitches done. So first I'll make a double crochet and then make a puff stitch. 3 and 4 and chain 1. So on 1, 2, 3, 4 puff stitches has been done. I'll make my last puff stitch. So this is my double crochet and then make the puff stitch. Now pull through everything, chain 1. Okay, so here again I have 4 puff stitches. So this aligns with my first row. So odd numbers, so you can see that it aligns here, this on top of this on top of this, like that. Now to end this row, you have to again make a half double crochet. So find the top of your turning chain and make a half double crochet. So that is how you do this. So make a half double crochet. So you always start with 2 chain stitch and you end with a half double crochet. So now I'm just going to repeat the pattern till I have a strip long enough to cover my head. You just have to repeat the exact same pattern, and when you're doing it, make sure that you maintain the same number of puff stitch in each row. Otherwise it may get wider or it may get narrower. So just go ahead and repeat the pattern and I'll meet you. So here I have finished making a very long strip, and if you want you can just go ahead and stitch the 2 ends together. So this is the strip that I have made. You can just join these 2 ends like this, but I'm just going to first of all straighten out the edges. It's not a big deal, it is straightened itself, but I thought I'll just straighten it a little bit more before stitching this up together. So for that, okay, this was my last puff stitch and my very last half double crochet. Okay, so this is my last row. Now I'm going to make single crochets here. So if you see, in every row we had either started with 2 chain stitches, or we had started with a half, or we had ended with a half double crochet. So the edges will either be chain 2 or a half double crochet. So what I'll do is, in every row I'm going to make 2 single crochets. Okay, so this is my first row here. I'll just chain 1 first, and into the this is a single half double crochet. So there I'm going to put 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. Come to the next row. So this probably would have started with if this was chain 2, this will be the chain 2 here, because we had started with a half double crochet here. So this is my chain 2. Here again I'm going to put 2 single crochet. Come to the next stitch here, again put 2 single crochet. Like this, for every row make 2 single crochet. So that will straighten out the sides. If you see, so you can see it has got a nice straight edge. So like this, I'll just make 2 single crochet for every row till I reach the other end, and similarly I'm going to do for the other side also, so that I have a straight edge, and then we will join these 2 together. So here I have completed making single crochet on both the sides, and if you see here we have a very nice straight edge. Now this is totally optional. If you want, you can totally avoid the single crochet border, but this is how this looks. It gives a very clean edge. Okay, so what I did is I had started a single crochet row all the way from here till this end, and I had cut my yarn here. Again I joined a new piece of yarn and then made a single crochet all the way to the other end. Now we can just join both these ends together. Now if you want, you can make it with a slip stitch. You can join with a slip stitch, but I'm just going to use a yarn needle to join both the sides. Okay, so just have to match the 2 sides and you can stitch. Now you can stitch with any stitch that you like. So I'll just go through the stitch that is near me, through the front loop of one side, and this side I have just 1 stitch left, so I'll go through that. Again come to the next stitch and the stitch that is left and pull. Like this, I'll just stitch this up till I reach the other end. Now as I said, if you want, you can use slip stitch and you can join with the help of the hook itself, but I prefer this way. So I'll stitch these up. So there I have stitched this up. There is a slight seam that is going, but it's not very much visible. I'll just knot this end. If you have a piece here, you can just make a double knot, or else you can just hide in the loose ends. Okay, so I'm just going to make a double knot here because I have one piece left, and then I'll hide in both the loose ends. So here I have hidden in the loose ends, and this is how this looks. Yes, there is a slight seam that is going on, but it's not really quite visible. You can always put this towards the back of your head. So yeah, that was the tutorial on how to do this crochet braided stitch ear warmer or headband. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed making it. Now, if you're making this headband, please do tag me. I will put all my social media handles in the description box. I would really love to see what you have made. So yeah, that was today's tutorial. If you liked it, please do not forget to press on the like button. And if you're new to my channel, please do consider subscribing. See you in another video. Until then, bye-bye. Thank you for watching.